All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Friday, July 11th, right here on your Daily Fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is All In Horns, presented to you by Rogue Sports Network. Today's episode, it could be really long. I'm not entirely sure how long this episode is going to be, Jake, but we've got a fun one for the people this Friday. We're going to go through the top 5 Texas Longhorns from the past decade. So from 2015 on to 2025, and every year in between, we're going to break down who we think our top 5 players are within that decade. Now, this also strings back to, I believe, Tom Herman for sure, and maybe at one season. Was it one season of Charlie Strong?
It doesn't matter. My whole list is Sarkisian. I'll just spoiler alert.
Well,
some people are going to love that because there are names that are worthy from some of the Herman teams, but I got recency bias all over my list.
If you're counting recruits, I think there's one from the Herman era.
There'd be, I believe, 2 on my list that are from Herman recruiting, actually.
Yeah, I have at least 2 from the Herman era. In fact, I know for a fact from 2. So, all right. Anyway, Jake, let's go ahead and let's jump into this list. We're going to go from 5 to 1. Now, I want to prefix all of this. This is who we think were the best players, not our favorite players, not our most liked players, not anything other than who we think were the best players that are on the field. Now, that also can mean a lot of things. That can be best college player. That can also be best prospect going into the NFL, whatever that looks like. Anyway, we will kind of explain all that, but some people get favorite player and best player mixed up. I wanted to just clarify that this is the best players that we thought were on the Texas Longhorns over the past decade. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take the lead on this one, Jake. My number 5 best Texas Longhorn in the last decade. I don't know if this is going to be controversy at all, but I've got number 5, Sam Ehlinger. Now, Sam Ehlinger was and probably is one of my favorite Texas Longhorns to ever play, but I also think he is one of the best Longhorns, and it really stems from just the quarterback purgatory that we were in prior to Sam Ehlinger, and then he comes along, and you immediately kind of feel this culture shift a little bit starting to change. Obviously, takes Texas, leads them to a 10-win season, gets a Sugar Bowl win over Georgia in what felt like a very dormant and long drought of any type of postseason or end-of-season success, getting to a Big 12 championship game, losing that game, but still getting there after a very long stretch of not being able to even, represent Texas in one of those games. So, and it coming at the quarterback position in a time where Texas was maybe in the furthest, deepest depths of football hell that you could possibly imagine, at least for the program itself, Texas. Now, in doing that under Tom Herman, I just think there's a lot that goes into having Sam Ehlinger there. Some people might argue that he wasn't the best talent, but I think in terms of college talent, I think he's up there. I think you put him under an Urban Meyer system, or you put him under a Jim Harbaugh system, or you put him, into a certain system, even a Nick Saban system. I think this dude could thrive and he had the potential to win a national championship. He had the potential to be in the Heisman candidacy at one point in his career, and that was completely taken away from him due to the coaching, due to the program, and where the state of it was under Tom Herman.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who made Texas being good again feel tangible, is how I would kind of put it. That was when it was like, okay, maybe Texas, because it was getting to a point where we're like, we're just never going to be good again. Like, it's just never going to happen. That's the point it felt.
He got to a point to where people legitimately were asking, is Texas back? And then he obviously made the proclamation in the post game of the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah. And he's not on my list, but he very easily could have been on my list, I will say, just because he was also a gamer. I mean, when they were in their biggest matchups, that was when he played his best, and they would have won some more of those big games if there wasn't failure elsewhere around him. I I would say I'd love to have seen him under Sarkisian, but I don't think Sarkisian would have even recruited him just because of the style of play not matching. But Ellinger is I think he's viewed in a very good light along the Longhorn fan base. I feel like I don't very often see very negative stuff about him because he brought us back. But my number 5 is going to be someone that might be a little controversial because it's very early. But I do think what he's done already and the projection of what's obviously coming with him is Colin Simmons. I mean, he already looks like the most prolific pass rusher we've seen since an Arakpo, maybe. Was Kindle after Arakpo? I think Sergio Kindle was after Arakpo, so maybe a Sergio Kindle.
Texas went on a hell of a run at edges for a
even Jeffcoat was pretty damn good. I mean, they've had some good edge, but Colin Simmons is the all around guy. He came in with sky high expectations. I think had a better first year than most people even have imagined he could have, because he wasn't just a pass rusher. He's good against everything. And then you add in the fact that he's already probably the best edge on a team that is loaded at edge, has the best edge room in the country, had one of, if not the best edge rooms in the country last year, especially when Trey Moore started stepping up towards the end of the season. You had Ethan Burke, you had Baron Sorrell, and obviously Colton Vasek came on kind of late in the playoffs. And so, but Colin Simmons sticking out from that group as, that number one guy. Like the guy that when he's out there, you're like, oh, that's a dude. That's that dude. For me, I mean, if he retired today, would he be on this list? Maybe not, because it's just 1 year. But I'm feel safe saying unless anything catastrophic happens, he's going to end up much higher than number 5 when it's all said and done.
No, I agree, Jake. I mean, he has the potential, the key word there, to become number 1 on both of our lists. He is on my list, but he's not my next player. So that means I have him ranked higher than you have him ranked. So I can't even argue with you, Jake. I have no room for argument. My next player, and this strictly comes down to position value for me of best player. So if I'm drafting these guys 1 through 5, and then I evaluate their talent and then plus their positional ranking and all that, I value the edge position a little bit more than I do middle linebacker, but I'm going to go Anthony Hill. Now, I'm not saying you can't line Anthony Hill up on the edge and him rush the passer and then he wouldn't have any success, because we've seen that at Texas and he's had a ton of success at doing that. He's just a great Mike linebacker. And so my number 4 spot, I've got Anthony Hill. And again, he was one of the vital switches that was when he was committed to A&M, and then he made the flip with Ewers, and it was just kind of that transitional stage of you get Ewers, and then you get the flip from Anthony Hill to come commit to Texas, and then it just kind of has, obviously history has kind of written itself. So I don't think you can write the success that Texas has had under Steve Sarkisian over the last 3 seasons without mentioning Anthony Hill within that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Hill's my 4 as well. And he bought into the vision kind of before it become a reality. And then his coming out party was against Alabama as a freshman on the road.
Yep.
And from really just a edge, from just playing edge in that game for the most part. He didn't really play a ton of linebacker in that game. He started playing more linebacker as the season went on, and he still plays edge, and he's going to play edge next year. They're going to have him, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, all rushing. I mean, you can do some crazy pass rush packages.
What's really fun with that idea, Jake, that you just mentioned, is that you have a guy in Leona Lafau who can step in at middle linebacker and allow Anthony Hill to have the freedom to line up at edge.
And you have a Brad Spence now, who I know is turning heads. The linebacker depth, I feel like, is going to free up guys like, and then you have Trey Moore, who's going to be able to slot in at different linebacking positions at time. Now he could slot in where Lafau is, and Lafau bump over to middle, or Brad Spence come in for Hill.
The possibilities are endless, it feels like.
The possibilities, especially in that front 7 for Texas, are endless. And Anthony Hill being a switchblade or
Swiss
not a
Swiss Army
thank
knife.
you, a Swiss Army knife type player, a kind of a Micah Parsons type player where he can play all over the place. Kind of enables the creativity that can happen on the field from PK. We saw it last year. I think it's only going to grow this year. And it's going to be one of the reasons Texas probably has another, top 5, top 10 defense in the country.
Yep. And then my number 3 player, Jake, I'm going to go with Colin Simmons. And so you had him at what, number 5? And I've got him at number 3. And I think that just goes to show, and just if I'm going based on pure talent and where I think he's going to evaluate going into the NFL draft, I mean, I don't see him being lower than a top 5 pick whenever he enters the draft. And so he might be 1 or 2, to be 100% honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised. And so just knowing that, and yes, he's only played for 1 season under Texas, and he's got 2 more years of eligibility that he has to play before he can even enter the draft. I just think by the time he's at that level, we're talking just maybe one of the best all-time pass rushers in college football history, not just Texas history.
I mean, you already have NFL scouts kind of drooling over him. We've seen the articles written about it during the season as he started to play more. And yeah, I mean, all the reasons I said, all the reasons you said. But my number 3 is probably one I have a bone to pick with you on. That is nowhere to be seen on your list.
Yeah.
Just calling you out right away. Jahdae Barron, who probably put together one of the most dominant seasons we've ever seen from a cornerback in the history of Texas football this past year. I mean,
if I can defend myself, I think the only argument that I would be able to fall back on, and it's not a great one, 1 season versus a full career. And again,
was he not a very good player at Star the year before that?
He was a great player, or he was a very reliable and good player. And then he just took an astronomical leap in his senior year that I don't think anybody could have expected.
Part of that was just the position switch, obviously, going from star to corner. But at Star, he was one of the better players on the whole defense already. Maybe didn't have as many plays that stick out just because playing the star position versus the corner position. The star position feels like does a lot of the nitty gritty stuff that kind of as the quarterback of the defense is the way that I've seen kind of Texas coaching staff talk about that position. Needs to be one of the smartest players on the field. And then him going from there to corner. And for me, that 1 season, I mean, it was so dominant and so impressive that it automatically brought him to the Lynx. I mean, he went from not even really being talked about as anything but a 5th, 6th round draft pick to a 1st round draft pick.
Yeah. No, it was one of the largest leaps that we've seen from a player from a junior year to a senior. I mean, late in his career, not just, because we talk about that development from Colt McCoy, his sophomore year to his junior year, even you want to talk about Vince Young from his sophomore year to his junior year, or his freshman year to his sophomore year. You see these large jumps, but you already kind of expect it from some of those guys that were more highly recruited, or had a 5-star ranking coming out of high school. But with a Jahdae Barron, I mean, yeah, he was ranked fairly high. I mean, he got recruited to Texas. Obviously, you're gonna have a good high school recruiting ranking, but again, his leap in development is a testament not only to himself but also the coaching staff, that it helps put players on this list. If you look at you and our list together, I would say 8 players, Jake, 7 players total are from the Steve Sarkisian era.
Yeah, and that doesn't even include guys like, the thing that's crazy about that is there's not even T'Vondre Sweat or Byron Murphy on either of our lists.
There's not a Xavier Worthy on our list.
And you could very easily argue for any of those 3 players we just said, T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Xavier Worthy, to be on this list, and I would have no problem with that, because I could see why any of those guys.
I went back and forth between Sam Ehlinger and Xavier Worthy in terms of
Xavier Worthy, T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy. I was like, they should be on this list, but that's just how much talent has been through the building in really not that long of a tenure from Steve Sarkisian so far. I mean, they've had the most players drafted out of any college to the NFL in the last 2 years, which is just the complete opposite of what was happening at Texas before him.
Goose egg. I will never forget the goose egg year. All right, Jake, my number 2 guy, which again, you might have a bone to pick with me on this one, but it's hard to argue 1 and 2 on both of our list. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks on as my number 2 guy. And again, he was another vital piece to the Steve Sarkisian recruiting class that once Quinn Ewers got here. And, I think Kelvin Banks was actually one of Sarkisian's first recruits, if I'm not mistaken, because I just remember hearing about this big, giant offensive lineman that Texas hadn't really had. Or was it Tom Herman?
No, Kelvin Banks was one of Sark's first recruits, but he was later in the class because he had originally committed to Oregon, and in the summer, does this sound familiar? And the whole fan base was panicked and freaking out, made a late flip to Texas. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. But Kelvin Banks to me was also one of those guys that was like, oh, there's a culture shift. There's a player shift. There's something different with this coaching staff when they're evaluating players. What they're looking for is not just skill position guys and very undersized, small offensive linemen. We're building within the trenches. And it was kind of one of those players, again, like an Anthony Hill, that whenever he came on board with Texas and he got off the bus and he was already the biggest player on the team as a freshman, not even having a single workout with the team, people were like, wait a second, this Steve Sarkisian guy is bringing in Alabama, Georgia type players just in terms of size and build.
If you go back a few years ago, before that 8-4 season under Sarkisian at Texas in his second season, and you just go look at articles from inside Texas, from On Texas Football, from Orange Bloods, for whatever Texas site, and you read the articles, and the writers are just like, these freshmen are monsters, and they're just like, they're the biggest and strongest and fastest players on the team. And like you said, that was the culture shift. That was the shift in philosophy of the style of players, the positions they were keying in on recruiting.
Traits that they were looking for in individual players.
Yeah. And Xavier Worthy, obviously he starred in that was Sarkisian's first recruit.
Yep.
And he's not impressive in size, but he's obviously impressive in his speed, his athleticism, his route running. Kind of a toolkit for Steve Sarkisian to use. But then Sarkisian also knows the value of getting a DJ Campbell, of getting a Cole Hudson, of getting a Kelvin Banks. And so, that going back and looking at those articles, looking at those YouTube videos is very funny, just because it was just like, oh, maybe Texas hasn't been recruiting that effectively.
No.
High in the class rankings, but not high in the Georgia, Alabama level of size and skill.
Yeah. 100%.
And then, so my 2 is going to be a recruit from the Herman era, who Herman would have probably caused to transfer because he wouldn't have used him correctly, would have underutilized him like he did his whole first season. Yeah. And that's Bijan Robinson. I think everyone can already guess who my number 1 is, so I have bias in the pick.
You can go ahead and you can mention both of them, since we already talked Kelvin Banks.
Yeah, Kelvin Banks is my number 1, just purely because he gave up about 1 sack a season on average, going against endless really good talent. And I think 2 of those sacks were this past season, when he wasn't really playing the most healthy. And you could argue 1 was not a given up sack on him. One of the sacks against Georgia.
Don't tell Mel Kiper that.
Yeah. Tanner, we don't. I've already done a couple. Jake, don't jump.
We don't mention that name on this podcast.
Yeah, the Shador should have gone before the first pick.
Yeah.
There should have been just played the Hunger Games between all the NFL teams, and the prize was just Shador Sanders.
Yeah.
But Bijan Robinson, I just wish his first year could have been Sark's, first or second season. I think if you had Bijan in one of these last couple teams, there's a very good, and he stays healthy, there's a very good chance they win one of those national titles.
I'm going to say maybe the 23 year, man, even if you really think about last year, but I think
last year it would have helped them more than the year before, because the year before the defense wasn't what it was last year.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking the 23 years simply because of the fumbles in the playoff game. Bijan doesn't fumble those.
But I don't know if it's enough to overcome Michigan.
To beat Michigan. Yeah.
Whereas they played in the de facto national championship last year.
Sure.
And
yeah.
lost by essentially a possession.
And,
I realize people go, they got doubled up. And it's like, okay, so you didn't watch the game. Got it.
Yeah. Well, and then not only that, but they stopped us in the red zone where we would have had Bijan Robinson probably not get stuffed or fumble in the red zone.
People forget how good the red zone offense was when they had Bijan and Roshan that 8-4 season.
Huh. When you have two NFL, well, you can't even say NFL caliber because Texas has had like 6 NFL caliber running backs on the same roster over the last 3 seasons, but
a different level of caliber. Just because Jaden Blue had the potential to be that caliber, but he had the fumble issue, and you couldn't fully trust him. Wisner is probably a low round NFL guy. He has the grit and the,
we'll see in his development. We'll see because he has potential to.
He could have a Jonathan Brooks like season this year.
Correct.
I mean, Brooks kind of came out of nowhere, and obviously Brooks is another tragic, kind of injury story.
Yeah, that's a real
both at the end of college, but Bijan is a guy that I would have loved to seen on these last 2 teams with a better offensive line, and would have alleviated a lot of their red zone issues, I think.
Well, and would have taken even more pressure off of Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, the play action game is just different because you can't not have a focus on Bijan when he was in the game. There was always a focus, and it opened up the field so much for Texas. And they didn't even have, that 8-4 season, Bijan's last year. That was the year where the O-line was finally getting better, but it's still really young, really inexperienced, and inconsistent at times. Obviously, consistency wasn't really an issue last year. It was just more of they couldn't run the ball in Georgia and Ohio State. But I think a Bijan would have helped a lot in those types of games.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Well, Bijan's my number 1 player for those who don't know or couldn't put that together in our last 5 minutes or so. But yeah, Bijan's my number 1 player. Anybody who has listened to me talk about Bijan over the last 3 or 4 years knows that he is probably my biggest man crush that has been at Texas over the last decade or so. Him and Sam Ehlinger. But you could just tell when Bijan ran the ball for Texas, it was an NFL running back running in against what looked like high schoolers at times. I mean, he was just, and what Tom Herman did to him his freshman year by just keeping him on the bench and not playing him and giving him 5 touches a game, or if that at most, it was a travesty to him even trying to touch Ricky Williams or any of the all-time Texas rushing records, which I believe he had the talent to do. I went on record and said, look, if there was just a talent off at Texas, no pedigree, you don't know anything about the guys, and you're just watching 3 running backs running the football blindly with no numbers, no knowing of the era that they played in, who's to say that Bijan isn't better than Ricky Williams or Earl Campbell at Texas? It was a different day and age in terms of the running the ball and the defenses that are being played and the offenses that are being played and the schemes that are being run. But just a talent for talent, pound for pound player. I think Bijan might be the best running back to ever play at Texas.
I think he's probably the best in our lifetime. That's saying a lot. We've seen Ricky Williams was kind of before
he was our lifetime, but we were like 4 years old watching him.
Yeah, there's not memories from watching. I mean, Jamal Charles would be one of the bigger names on that list.
Yeah,
and Jamal
Priest
Charles
Holmes
was unbelievable. Priest Holmes also still kind of before really.
Yeah,
we were fully watching. Jamal Charles would probably be
he was probably the first one, and then you can't put Deontay Foreman in that same conversation. You can put and for me, he's just a different, Bijan's head and shoulders above.
Deontay Foreman had
that season,
the one huge season, and then but he was also overused in that season because Tom Herman didn't care about the health of any of his players
He
other than making
had
them do piss tests.
he had the wear and tear system all the way down, as
Oh.
low as you could have it.
He turned it off in his mind. It's like, coach, my leg's red. It's broken.
Nope.
I don't care.
Get back out there.
Run into a wall of players.
Cedric Benson, Jake. Cedric Benson.
Cedric Benson would be Cedric Benson and I think Jamal Charles, and then Deontay Foreman would be the big names.
Yeah.
You probably talk about. I mean, Ramonce Taylor would be a big what if.
I was going to also mention Ramonce as well.
He would probably be the biggest what if on that list.
Yeah.
Just because the little that we got to see of him was unbelievable.
It was electric. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, all right, Jake. Hey, we made it within 30 minutes. I mean, that's a normal episode for us, and we give people a little extra on a Friday afternoon. So, I'm going on vacation this weekend. So, adios, people. I'm heading to the beach. Gonna have a lot of fun there. Taking the family. Gonna have a little break, and so looking forward to it. Jake, hold down the fort for us, but we will be back next week on Monday to discuss more things college football. There's been some recruiting that's been going on that we haven't necessarily touched on. We've kind of let the waters kind of settle before we jump back into it, and so we'll get back on a Texas recruiting kind of update for the start of next week and really throughout the week as well. But for Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. This has been your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. We come out with these episodes Monday through Friday, dropping at noon each and every single day. So please give us a like, share, and a subscription. We definitely appreciate it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.